The clock struck 6 in the morning when Betty Lou Parker unlocked the doors of Willow Diner again. It had been 3 weeks since that night, the night that changed everything. The sky outside was still dark, a pale silver mist rolling over the small town of Maplewood. Inside, the diner smelled faintly of coffee and sorrow. The neon sign flickered, half alive, half broken, like her. Betty stood behind the counter, tracing her fingers over the smooth edge of the coffee pot. Her hands were still trembling sometimes, but her heart was learning to stay steady. She had come back. No one expected her to. After what she had endured, most thought she would disappear, leave town, vanish like a ghost in the fog, but she didn't, because this place was hers. This diner was the only home she'd ever known. Scene 1, the empty diner. Camera pans slowly around the empty diner, chairs turned up, blinds half drawn, the smell of yesterday's rain lingering in the air. Betty walked to the jukebox and pressed a coin into the slot. The song "Smoke Gets in Your Eyes" started to play, soft and haunting. She closed her eyes. Music always made her feel less alone, as if someone, somewhere, understood her pain. Her reflection stared back from the glass window. A woman in her late 20s, wearing a pale blue uniform, her hair tied up neatly, her eyes wiser, older than her years. The bell above the door jingled. She turned, startled. It was Mrs. Hathaway, the old lady who lived across the street. She smiled softly. "You're open again, dear." Betty nodded, forcing a gentle smile. "Coffee's fresh, ma'am." Mrs. Hathaway sat down by the window, folding her gloved hands. "I prayed you'd come back. It takes courage to face the world after a storm." Betty poured coffee into a white porcelain cup. Her hands didn't shake this time. "I figured if I could survive the night," she said quietly, "I can survive the morning too." Scene 2, the return montage. The days begin to pass, the diner slowly comes back to life. The familiar faces return: truck drivers, factory workers, schoolteachers, all whisper when they see her, but Betty keeps her smile steady. Sometimes, when she turns to pour coffee, her eyes fill with tears, but she never lets them fall. One afternoon, the local paperboy, Tommy, about 12 years old, rushes in with a newspaper. He sets it on the counter. "Miss Betty, they're writing about you." She blinks, confused. He points to the small headline at the bottom. "Local waitress returns to work after tragedy, a symbol of strength in Maplewood." Betty stares at it for a long moment, her lips tremble. Then she laughs softly, a sound the diner hadn't heard in weeks. "Guess I'm famous now," she says gently. Tommy grins. "You're a hero, Miss Betty." Scene 3, the stranger, evening. Rain falls again. The bell jingles as a stranger walks in. A man in a dark coat enters, shaking off the rain. He looks around quietly, then takes a seat at the counter. "Coffee, please," he says in a calm voice. Betty nods and pours a cup. When she looks at him again, she notices his hands, musician's hands, strong but gentle. "Cold night," she says softly. He smiles faintly. "The world gets cold sometimes, but places like this make it warmer." She blushes a little. "You new in town?" "Just passing through," he replies. "Name's Daniel Reed. Used to play piano for a living." Her eyes widen. "Really? We used to have a piano here. It's been quiet for years." He glances toward the corner, where an old upright piano sat, covered in dust. "Maybe it's time it played again." Music cue, soft piano melody begins, gentle, nostalgic, romantic. Daniel walks to the piano, wipes the dust from the keys, and starts playing Autumn Leaves. The sound fills the diner, weaving through the air like sunlight through smoke. Betty watches him, her eyes shimmering. For the first time in months, she feels something pure, something like peace. Scene 4, healing montage. Days pass. Betty and Daniel become friends. He comes by every evening, plays music for the guests, and helps her close up after hours. They talk about everything: life, loss, dreams that never came true. One night, as they clean tables, Daniel asks quietly, "Do you ever think about leaving this place?" Betty looks around, the neon lights, the cracked booths, the scent of coffee that never fades. "No," she says after a moment. "This diner saved me. Maybe now it's my turn to save it." He nods. "Then I'll help." Together, they repaint the walls, they fix the sign. Betty replaces the old torn menus with new ones she writes by hand. The town notices. Willow Diner becomes alive again, brighter, warmer, full of laughter and music. Scene 5, the festival, a year later. The diner is hosting Maplewood's annual Autumn Festival. Betty stands behind the counter, watching people fill the room: families, children, young couples. Music echoes from the piano, Daniel playing, smiling at her from across the room. Mayor Thompson raises a glass, "To Betty Lou Parker, the heart of Maplewood." Applause fills the diner. Betty blushes, wiping a tear from her cheek. She looks out the window at the golden leaves falling for the first time. She feels the weight of her past lift, like smoke disappearing into the morning sky. Scene 6, the letter, late night. The diner is empty. Betty finds an envelope under the piano. She opens it. Inside is a note in Daniel's handwriting. Dear Betty, you taught me that strength isn't about never breaking, it's about breaking and choosing to stand anyway. I'm heading west for a new job, but I'll carry your light with me. If this piano ever plays again, let it play for you. To Daniel. She smiles sadly, tears in her eyes. Then she sits at the piano, presses a single key, and the diner fills with the soft hum of memory. Outside, dawn begins to rise. Scene 7, the dawn. Final scene. The camera pans across the diner as sunlight spills through the windows. Betty pours a cup of coffee, sets it down on the counter, and watches the sun climb over Maplewood. Her voice narrates softly.